Hey, how you doing? For anyone who's new, I'm Jeremy. And here on this channel, I wanted to go over topics that politicians use to play games to screw with the rest of us. I'm working on that a little bit. Today, I'm going to talk about abortion. Pro-life versus pro-choice. I've been doing this for a little while. I've changed up my format a little bit. During the weekend, I watched a little bit about how to do YouTubes and videos a little bit better. One of the things that I found pretty interesting was that you don't want your friends and family watching your videos because they're not your audience and it screws up the algorithm. It's like, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Because if the algorithm is set to line up viewers and watchers, then that confuses it. It's like, well, of course they want that. I would think. Anyways, we're going to talk about pro-life versus pro-choice. I have done this before. I've added to it. And I don't know what I'm going to do just yet because while I was doing this video, I just started. I have a list. It's in alphabetical order. I started A with abortions. But then I noticed with my video suggestions, Tim Pool had a video talking about inflation and how it's coming and everything with it. And it's like, maybe that's what I should be doing instead. It's maybe what's kind of current. All these have to be addressed though. And whether if it's now or later, I mean, it's like all this is going to continue to happen. Abortions, inflation, whatever. And at some point in time, I'm going to have to do this. Maybe I could do it every other day. Do one in alphabetical order, and then the next day, like tomorrow, do one about inflation. I don't like that. I strongly believe that many of these issues are just politicians, Republicans and Democrats, just trying to control the government and to lace influence on these situations without ever resolving them. I saw a thing with Dan Crenshaw today where he did a pretty good job of talking about replacing lead pipes, but then he did absolutely nothing to resolve it. He starts off the video talking about I'm going to make, actually, I'm making, I think that's going to be a second video that I will be making today about it because he does a good job a little bit, but he falls short of the mark. And I'm tired of it. It's ridiculousness all across the board. I'm tired of being lied to. I'm tired of being manipulated. There are other things that I want to do with my life. So an example is that I just happened to come across this thing and it was called Book Nooks. And it's just this little scene that you create that can go on your bookshelf in between your books. And man, with 3D printers and acrylics and LED lights, people have made some really cool things with, what do they call it? Pepsi Ghost or not Pep. It starts with a P. It's where you take a mirror and you angle it off, and so the image bounces off like this off of the mirror, whatever, so you don't see the source over here, you just see the reflection, and so it looks like a ghost. But they had a lot of cool little techniques, and it's like, I would rather do things like that. I don't want a house full of trash. There's a lot of things that are being produced that they look really nice, but it means nothing. I want a house filled with memories of projects. And with all the creative tools that we have at our disposal, it's just like, what a waste. Anyways. So if you two are tired of being lied to and manipulated, and you want to know both sides of the argument, or maybe if there's even a third or whatever, then give me a like, thumbs up, subscribe, become a member. I've got Patreon, Subscribe Star, all this stuff really helps me out a lot. And hopefully we can get on to living more fulfilled, purposeful, filled lives than this trash that's going on, because this is ridiculous. So I have this set up that I've had for a while now. I'm going to go over some videos and some articles about the subject, and then above my head over here I have a text-rich document where we're going to go over the information and see what it is that we can come up with. So this one is about abortion, and on all of these I always have that this is not about changing anybody's minds. That's not what this is about. If you think that I'm here to change you about being pro-life or pro-choice, you need to open your ears. I am here trying to show that there are lies, that everybody all across the board, that they're lying, whether if it's intentional or not, I don't care. I just want it left up for everyone to be able to decide for yourselves by bringing the best, most accurate information possible to your attention. So the first thing that we need to start off with is the definition. So what is an abortion? So these sources, they're not the greatest in the world. I don't care. Does it make sense? Are they good enough? I know how to flesh it out later whenever I build a website. So abortion is the termination of a pregnancy by removal or expulsion of an embryo or fetus. And then it goes on whether if it's a miscarriage, whether if it's something that happens naturally, or if it's done with some kind of help. It's like, we're not too focused on the definition of abortion. I don't think anybody's really arguing that. And then the two sides that we see all the time is pro-life and pro-choice. That kind of seems to be the biggest two. So why pro-life? So there is an article here from www.mccl.org, why pro-life. I don't know what that stands for. I don't care. It's just, is this correct? So why an abortion is unjust. The argument for pro-life view then may be summarized like this. The abortion is a human being. The unborn is a human being, is the first thing. And so if you accept that, then it kind of leads on to the second, which is all human beings have human rights, which include the right not to be intentionally killed. And then 3, therefore, unborn human beings have human rights. And this is what happens, that through suction, dismemberment, crushing, or poisoning is unjust. And then they go on about many abortion supporters say that women have the right to choose, or what we should trust women and let them decide. And so I have issues on both sides of the argument with this stuff. I don't want to take a side. I want the truth. So many abortion supporters say that women have a right to choose, and my retort on that is, why just women? Why isn't it men and women? Excuse me. They both did this together, so they should both have a say in this. I don't know why one should be opted out of this. They're both the parents. It's both their decisions. And I understand that it's the woman's body, not the man's, but there's nothing you can do to change this. This is the only way for men to be able to have children, is that it requires the help of the woman. And vice versa, a woman can't do it on her own either. It requires the man's contribution to be able to do that. So, to go into it a little bit further, I think that if the woman doesn't want to have the child, but the man does, then he has to pay for all the medical expenses, make sure that she's being taken care of with whatever happens with the woman during her pregnancy or whatever. It's not to say that he gets kind of just go and say, oh, well, I want to have the baby, and the burden is all on you to go through to the doctor and to do the paid leave and all this, whatever's required from the hospital, from her place of business, insurance, all that stuff. It's like, no, all that then falls on him. And so then that way, if she does have to take off work, then he also should cover any lost wages that she might incur too. I believe in being fair for all, and it's why. And I guess I understand this a little bit better because I am a guy, and it's like, well, what choices do I have if I don't have any choice at all, and it's just all solely left on the woman? No. Anyways, people do have the right to choose to do lots of things, but there are some acts that aren't just and shouldn't be permitted by law just because they harm innocent people. The question at hand is whether an abortion is one of those harmful acts. There are good reasons, and then you can read more about it. And then I also want to say, it's like, well, you did have a choice. You had a choice to have sex or not. You had choice to use some kind of protection or contraception or not. Just because you refuse to do one after another doesn't mean we could tack on a billion more. There's no limit. It's just limited by your imagination. There just comes a point in time where you have to say, you know what? You've had your opportunity. You just weren't responsible. Grow up. Or at least that's my views on that. Tough circumstances. I'm not going to read every last little one of these things. Pregnant women have often faced, and I have links down in the description below so you can go and you can read into all this further for yourself. Pregnant women often face very difficult circumstances, but if unborn children are valuable human beings, like born children, then killing them is no more justified in tough situations. An example would be financial hardships, than killing born children in those same situations. And this is something that I've seen more and more articles and people do, is that they take these arguments and they say, well, what if it was a living child? Do you get to kill your child because you're having financial difficulties? Okay, well, you don't get to kill your unborn child because of financial difficulties either. Again, that just goes back to, you've had your choices and you just ignored them. And so you don't get, it can just keep going. So this would be an example, is that, well, I want to have an abortion because of my physical, financial hardships that I'm going to have with this limited financial situation that I'm in right now. It's like, okay, well, why not carry that on over to killing your child for the same reason? It's like, that doesn't work. So it's inconsistent, 100%. Our response to the difficulties women face should be to provide support, resources, and ethical alternatives so no woman feels like abortion is her only option. It's not her only option. And it is not my job to support a woman or the mother or the father for support, resources, or ethical alternatives. That is not my job or yours or anybody else's. They made this decision. And if they went into it unprepared, that's their problem. How are you supposed to go out there and tell every single man and woman out there about all of these things? It's like, no, the best thing is that you have to figure this out for yourself before you start. That's what all of this is supposed to be. Before you get into drugs, so whether if they're small or hard, just like smoking pot or cigarettes or drinking alcohol. It's not that you don't ever do these things, that there aren't a lot of people who are out there who are saying that you should never do this. No, the overwhelming majority of the people in these arguments are saying that you need to be aware of the consequences of your actions, and that this is why that we have age restrictions on this stuff, because we want there to be plenty of time for you to be developed and to understand all of these things that are involved with it. Not that you can't, but that there's a time and a place, and that time is whenever you reach a certain age. And then this rape, although rape and incest account for less than 1%, I guess this is from Minnesota, abortions, these cases are very real. Rape is a truly horrific crime, and the crime is made even worse. I'm going to leave it off right there because we're going to talk about that over there on my little page I've got. Adverse diagnosis. It's heartbreaking, but just as a disease or disability don't justify killing unborn children, they aren't good reasons to kill unborn children either. Moreover, support and alternatives to abortions are available, including adoption for children with special needs. And I'm going to disagree with this. If I knew that I was about to have a child and that they're going to have special needs, I would seriously think about wanting to have an abortion. It's like I'm not wanting to have a child just to have a child. I'm not wanting to have a child who has special needs. I'm not looking for a child that, I mean, it's a horrible place to be in. Oh my goodness, I can't imagine. But I think if it really kind of came down to it, it's like, no, I do have a choice here. And this was not something that I could have planned for, that there was no recourse that I could take beforehand. I'm dealt with this whenever I find out that information. You know, getting engaged in intercourse, that's got nothing to do with whether or not if you're going to have a healthy child or not. Saving the mother. This is so dumb. I know absolutely nobody who says, let the mother die. Who says that? Show me where you see just all these people gathered around, just like, let her die. Who does that? Imposing a view. I don't know anyone who does this either. No, I take that back. I guess they both kind of do. Forcing religion, yeah, there are some people who are just... And the whole thing with religion is that you don't know one way or the other. You just have to decide for yourself what it is. Danger of illegal abortions. That would be something... It's like, okay, what is it with illegal abortions? I didn't look into it this time, and it's because there's just too much information. But again, this is about showing that there's just trash all over there. Punishing women. Gender equality. Okay, I wanted to talk about this one. Some feminists argue that gender equality requires legalized abortion. The challenges of pregnancy and childbirth do fall uniquely on women and not men. It's like, okay, I agree and disagree. Although men are equally responsible for children at home. I myself personally believe 100% that men should have to step up in every imaginable way, just as much as the mother, to do all that they can. To not do otherwise is irresponsible and reckless. It's just, no. It took both of them to tango, and so the dance is not over until it's over. The burden of caring for 5-year-old children fall on the parents of 5-year-old children and not on everyone else, and laws against killing or abandoning 5-year-old children are not justified for that reason. So they're doing the same thing right now that we talked about just a little bit, is that they're taking this, well, you know what, if it's a child, we wouldn't accept this excuse, so why are we accepting this excuse here? Because it doesn't matter what stage through human development that you are, this is just an excuse. It doesn't work, so it doesn't get to work here. And it's like, that's right. Despite differing circumstances, everyone should be equally prohibited from taking innocent human life. More can and should be done, however, to hold men to their responsibilities as fathers and to accommodate the essential role mothers play in our society. And to accommodate the essential roles that fathers play in our society, too. Do not tell me just women. Do not tell me just men. It is men and women. It's mothers and fathers both. This just is all just... Men and abortion. Some people say that men shouldn't express an opinion about abortion. It's true that men can't fully understand the experience of pregnancy. I don't have to. I don't have to be able to go through pregnancy to fully understand it enough to be able to make a decision. So it's just like I don't have to go out there and do cocaine to understand the full experience for me to be able to make a decision whether or not if I want to use cocaine or not. That's not the way that life works. There are a billion things out there in life that I will never experience, but I can still make an informed decision based off of the information given to me at hand. So screw that crap. You can take that and you can shove it. But it's also true that an abortion is either right or wrong, irrespective of the experience of any particular person. The pro-life view is held by millions of women. I do not care. The pro-life view is held by millions of men, too. And the pro-choice is held by millions of women and men. That means absolutely nothing. You can take that false, fluff narrative, making this into a narrative, novelization novelization of this stuff, and you can shove it, just fluff word. That's all that is. That view cannot just be dismissed because of a trait of a person who happens to be advocating it. If abortion really is the unjust taking of innocent human life, then both women and men ought to speak up on behalf of the unborn girls and boys who have no voice. Yeah, and I hear that too, and it's like, and it's kind of it goes to that there are people out there who are brave and strong, and that they will speak up for those who are unable to defend themselves. This is something that comes to mind with like knights, is that there are some knights out there back in the day that they took vows to protect those who could not protect themselves. And it's the same. This is the same thing right here. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this over here. So I just have gender inequality. Some feminists argue, but right here I have the link to the entire article right here, because I think this is pretty good. I think this is close enough that everybody gets the gist of it. I have a problem with pro-choice. I went to some places and it's like I'm unsure. It's just to me. Try a condom. Well, what the hell are you talking about? What is this called again? 15 reasons to be pro-choice. Okay, great. I am pro-choice because pregnancy should never be mandatory. So it all depends on how you phrase it. I would say I am pro-choice because a pregnancy should be avoided through contraception. How hard is that? How hard is it to understand that? They have the shot, they have birth control pills, they have condoms, the morning after pill, they've got all kinds of stuff out there today. So what are you talking about? It's like, it's not mandatory. Because there's plenty of things you can just obtain if you really want to. I am pro-choice because sex is a natural aspect of human life. So's killing. We've been killing since the dawn of time, each other and animals and everything. That doesn't mean that there's just nothing to it and you just get to go out and do whatever you want whenever you want. Is a natural aspect of human life. So there are plenty of things that human beings have done, and it's just absolute garbage. So no, that is not a fact. That is just your view on things through your own feelings and experience, which means nothing. I don't care about your personal experiences. I don't care about this fantasy world. It's like, well, you know what? For some people out there, sex is a sacred thing that is only done between two people and not every single person that you come in contact with. So that's your perspective. And I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm just trying to say that that is your perspective. It's got nothing to do with it. I'm pro-choice because contraception is frequently unavailable. What are you talking about? Unavailable? You don't know to go to a convenience store and to get a condom? They're dirt cheap. I tell you what, if you are in a position in your life where you cannot go and get a condom, then you've got major problems to be dealing with, other than whether or not you should be having sex, because you have financial problems that are just extremely insanely massive. You probably have problems finding food. So I don't know what you're talking about at all. Oh. Since 1980, women have faced a 61% decrease in funding for the Title X program. That is making us an assumption. From my understanding is that the Title X program does not do what it's supposed to do at all. So that is, I did not look into this at all. I'm going to go ahead and add this. So down here at the bottom, which supports low-cost family planning services, socially charged issues, including the inaccurate persecution of Planned Parenthood, Supreme Court cases such as Whole Woman's Health versus... No, Yeah, so Planned Parenthood, that's another one right there. Because I've seen plenty of discussions and debates about Planned Parenthood, about how they are designed for minority people to be able to kill their babies, and it's like overwhelmingly blacks are like the first, and then I think Hispanics, and I think like whites, and then Asians or something like that. So no, I don't care what the wording says. I care about what does it do. And this doesn't do anything, because you shouldn't be doing this in the first place. Do not tell me that you don't have options. I'm going to read just a little bit more. I'm pro-choice because it's time for men to stop dictating the actions of women. No, do you not listen to what they are talking about? The children. They are talking about the people, and what you're trying to say, pro-choice too. Where does this statement come from? Why is this even here? You could even say because it's time for people to stop dictating the actions of women. That would work just as well. Man, the framing of all this. It is truly simple. If a person does not have the female reproductive organs required to become pregnant, then it is not to preach about the morality of pregnancy and choice. Women do not have the reproductive organs required to become pregnant. It requires a man too. That there is no one who can just and get pregnant. What a false statement. Men have no place to control the reproductive rights of women. Wrong. That is their child too. This is if you are a man who disapproves of abortion, you can do your part by not impregnating a woman. You know what? If you are a woman who disapproves of abortion, you can do your part by not getting impregnated by a man. How about that? Turn it all around on you because you're nonsensical. In a country where the legislating body of our government is primarily composed of men, which has absolutely nothing to do with anything. Just because you have certain between your legs that it is that you have does not magically make you a saint or a sinner. That is not the way that it works at all. 7. I am pro because pregnancy and childbirth is a massive financial undertaking, which should be absolutely positively shared by both. That if the two of them want to do it, then they share upon it however that they deem fit. If only one person wants the child, then they take up all the financial responsibilities. I don't know anybody who's ever said that the woman should have to take care of all this financially by herself. I don't know who says this. I know of no one. I'm sure there's probably somebody out there who probably says something along this line, but just because you found somebody who's mentally does not mean that that is a point that the normal population takes hold of. I'm pro-choice because there are too many orphan children in the world. What does that have to do with anything? Talk about a straw man right there. I mean, that's what a lot of these are. These are straw men. We are not talking about orphan children in the world. We are talking about this unborn child. You take it and you change it just a little bit into something else, which, while it's closely associated with one another, have nothing to do with each other. You know what? You don't want there to be orphan children up for adoption. What the hell are you talking about? I am pro-choice because a woman's sexual health and reproductive choices are not my business. They are my business whenever you want to take that money out of my pocket, call it taxes, and then use it to pay for this. It's like, no, absolutely. People, they get money all the time and they use it for nonsense. So if whatever it is, if it's going to be funded by the government, then you bet but I have absolutely say in all this stuff. You don't. I'm pregnancy is still incredibly prevalent. What does that have to? Well, you know what? If people do a better job of teaching their children about the consequences of having sex, then maybe that would be a little less of an issue. Whenever sex propaganda all over the place, whenever it's in movies, TV shows, and songs, it's like, pro-choice has nothing to do with them having sex in the first place. They shouldn't be having sex in the first place. Straw man. I'm pro-choice because the U.S. still lacks quality sex education. Perhaps. It is no secret that abstinence-only education is effective. It could be. Logically, adolescents who receive well-rounded sex education are 60% less likely to become pregnant and pregnant. Someone as opposed to those who receive no sex education. Despite this, only states require that the information presented in sex education is factual, and nearly 25% of teenagers who receive no information about birth control from parents or teachers in any form. Yeah. You know, how much of it is it actually factual? How much of it is just people just throwing in personal voices? Like, I don't care about any of that stuff. I want to know what's legitimate. So, I am pro-choice because I support freedom of religion. Yes. I support issues with many pro-life advocates in the prevalence of a religious argument in the United States. Freedom of religion includes the protection of and protection from a religion. This means that an individual's religious beliefs have no authority over. That's right. That's right. Because whether they believe in God or not, everybody's doing their best guess. And so, who has it right? I don't know. There's a God that really changes things. If there's not a God, then that really changes things too. So, absolutely correct. It's like, I am pro-choice. I don't care. I do not care about you and your. What are the facts? We'll put there. But yes, religion should not play a part of it, and it's because telling you what you should be doing with your sexual practices, or a Muslim or a Jew or a Buddhist. It's like, no. So everybody, whenever it comes to religion, you need to mind your own business. You know, and if somebody wants to talk to you about it, fine, go ahead. No problems with that. But you don't get to force it down somebody else's throat. I'm pro-choice because illegal and unsafe abortions should never be the last resort. That is not an. That is living in. That is saying, in a perfect world, there's no such thing as a perfect world. You know, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have drunk drivers, we wouldn't have people using cocaine and all these other hard means. Parents wouldn't abandon their children. This is not an argument. I am pro-choice because abortion is not equivalent to murder. Okay. No one is denying that a fetus is a being. Yes, they do. They say it all the time. It's just a group of cells and that it cannot survive outside of the body on its own. Then it's kind of thing. So that's I know that's 100% wrong. I hear that constantly. Anything composed of cells is by definition alive. Now, technically, you know, I know a fetus is alive just like the leaves hanging from a tree, the yeast we use to bake bread, and the cows we slaughter to consume as food. These are all living beings. The fact that a fetus may or may not have a beating heart, developing neurological structures, indefinable indefinable digits or any other human quality does not equate abortion to murder. The, all embryonic organisms resemble a developed version of said organism. Additionally, a fetus that is not mature, necessary neurological system required to feel pain until 26 weeks. That, are we talking about murder or are we talking about pain? Those are two different things. Not to mention, pain is a subjective experience. That's what anesthesiology is that they put you under, they give you all of these. Whenever I was a little kid, I was playing with some other kids, fell, scratched up my knee. I had rocks lodged in my knee. Went to the emergency room and they poured this stuff on the wound on the knee and it numbed it. And then they started picking out the rocks. Just because you don't feel pain doesn't mean we can give people shots so that they don't feel anything and then shoot them in the head. That doesn't mean that it's still not murder. I am pro-choice because I support the empowerment and advancement of women. What does that have to do? We're talking about the fetus. I guess you can say women too, but what about you're talking about in this article about the responsibility that men play too, and then here you are leaving them out of it because you want women or you want men to pay financially their share for it. And it's like, yes, absolutely. But then here you are saying, no, it's just a woman's money and she can do whatever she wants to with it. And it's like, and if she wants to go to the most expensive doctor, then that's on her because she can get the man to pay for half of it. It's like, And so then this other article, each person has a unique reason to be pro-choice. Here are some of ours. I am pro-choice. Why do they all start off this way? I am pro-choice because I don't care what you are. What's the evidence and the facts? What is it that's really happening? So there was this thing called the Somerville camp thing, and it's where they took these kids who were having problems. They did summer school, summer camp. And whenever they looked at the results afterwards, these kids were worse. Because they said, well, if we give these kids a good education and they're learning their math and their English and all this other stuff, then they'll be able to be more productive citizens. And no, they were more productive criminals because they didn't do anything about teaching morals and values and the consequences of your actions or any of this kind of thing. It was just really academic focused. And it was horrible. It's like it all sounded really good. They had all these good people and these counselors to help out with all this stuff, and it completely backfired. Sounds good in theory, but in reality, it's not what happened. That doesn't mean that you give up on all this stuff. It means, well, where are the faults? Let's make some corrections so we can actually make this happen. The single most impactful... I'm pro-choice because I don't think there's any reason why a woman should have to face all the consequences from something she did not do alone. Absolutely right. If a guy can get a woman pregnant and then run away, there's no reason why she should be the one responsible for everything. He cannot run away. By law, he has to pay child support. Have you not heard of child support? What the hell are you talking about? Having more options puts a woman on more equal footing with men. I do not care about equal footing. I care about both of them being equally responsible and doing the best decisions that's for them, instead of being someone whom they can take advantage of. That is completely illegal from what I understand. If you know otherwise, leave a comment down there in the section below. Single most important factor for women's advocacy in society is our ability to control our fertility, being fertile. Yeah. I would say you're placing that incredibly... depends on your point of view. Depends on the person. So do not speak to me on that because I do not agree with that. And I'm sure that there are other people out there who would say the same thing. It's not to say that it's not important, but the single most important is like, get the hell out of here. Without that, we are trapped by the realities of pregnancy, childbirth, and child rearing rather than a privilege and a gift. It's like, well, I agree. Men should be all a part of this. That he doesn't get to skip out on any of this stuff. He should be there for the pregnancy. He should be there for the birth. He should be there for the child rearing. Absolutely. Now, I think if one person doesn't want to do it, then they can sign away their rights to all this stuff. So, and I've talked about this before. So like if the mother doesn't want it, but the guy does, then he has to pay for all the financial stuff. But she also loses all visitation rights and doesn't get any contact with the kid because she said, I don't want anything to do with it. Okay, well, fine. I think one of the biggest. So yeah, I agree with all this. Men have absolutely equal rights in all this, but no, I don't know of anyone who says this on the opposite side who says no, men can just go around knock up women and just leave them to their own devices. I don't know of anybody who's ever said anything like that. I'm sure there's a few nut jobs for sure, but they're nut jobs. I think one of the biggest problems with the abortion debate is that the two sides aren't in direct opposition. That they aren't in direct opposition. Yeah, some of that stuff. The pro-life movement seeks to force their moral beliefs on others grounded in their own religion and personal philosophy. Yeah, I think their own personal philosophies, their religious beliefs definitely play a part in it, and it should be taken out. But part of the problem, though, is that we haven't clearly defined all this stuff with religion. It's like, no problems with you having your own religion, but that's your own personal choice. We don't know which religion is right, if any one of them is right, and so everybody's just doing their best guess. And I don't want to hinder anybody from doing what they believe is best. I believe strongly in taking responsibilities for one's actions. Okay, then why don't you ever talk about contraception? Why don't you ever talk about condoms, pills, and all that other stuff that I listed before? I believe that people should practice safe sex or abstinence, okay? And I believe that the consequences of an unwanted pregnancy can be worse. I'm pro-choice because it's the only option that isn't poisoned with misogyny. I believe that we are responsible for justifying our beliefs in that blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go ahead and finish up over here on this, and I'm going to add a little bit more to this whenever I'm done here. So some facts and evidence is that fewer than 1% of all abortions take place because there has been rape or incest involved to create the pregnancy. There was this video I saw of this black woman who just tore it out of the park. Oh. I don't see it here, but I remember what she said. Fewer than 1% of all abortions take place because there has been rape or incest involved in to create the pregnancy. And she said, well, why do you get to kill this fetus? Do you get to kill the person who raped you or who did incest with you? So why is there an exception for this? I had never heard that before. And it's like, that's a very good question to ask. And then in Pennsylvania, with their legislation, modified the law to say that it only covered rape or incest reported to law enforcement authorities, that the number of publicly funded abortions dropped from 35 a month to 3. Oh, so the only ones that are rape or incest that got reported went from 35, so only 3 rape or incest. The number of abortions that occurred in the United States based on the statistics because of rape or incest were 12,000 in the entire U.S. There's over 350 million people in the U.S. 12,000 is not a lot. I mean, it still sucks. Don't get me wrong. It absolutely does suck. But this is another thing that I don't know of anybody who says really that if you are raped or if you do have incest that you can't have an abortion. So I don't mind sharing my views on this, as I've already been doing quite a bit. If you've been raped or if you've had incest occur or whatever, man, I tell you what, you find out within that, before the 20 weeks, I'm all for it. I cannot answer on that. That was an unwilling participant there. It's like, that changes things. In 2008, the Supreme Court of California upheld that pregnancy resulting from rape constitutes great bodily injury. Yeah, I'm sure there are some rapes that's worse than others. So I mean, the ultimate would be the rape that ends in the death of the woman there. 90% of those who mentioned rape or incest as a reason for abortion also named other reasons as well for deciding to abort. How long is pregnancy? Roughly 280 days or 40 weeks. A preterm or premature baby is delivered before 37 weeks of your pregnancy. Extremely premature infants are born 23 through 28 weeks. Wow, that's incredibly early. An Institute study on rape-related pregnancies found that nearly 80% of the women who aborted said that their abortions was the wrong solution. Wow, and this was rape-related studies. It's like, this is what I care about. I don't care about what you think. What's actually going on? And so if all of these women, if this is what they're feeling like afterwards, you got to take that into account somehow. And then questions that need to be answered or at least asked. How do men get to have children if women get all the say in all of this stuff? And, well, one of them is that, well, get married. What are the worst case situations with every situation? Yes, let's look at them all. Let's look at every situation, not just a few. Why does the woman have the right to kill a child? And so, yeah, this was her. If a man killed a child or a woman, then they would go to jail. Should a girl be allowed to abort a baby after being raped? Can you kill the person who raped you? Like that, yeah. How is it that the woman, after the abortion from rape, incest, or just in general? I don't know what I was trying to say there. I'm just going to take that out. 32% of victims did not discover they were pregnant until they had already entered the second trimester. So why is that, and what about the rest? 20 weeks. It's like, why? Did they? What? Yeah, that's. Are we talking about teens, adult women? Because I may be wrong about this, but I think teenage girls, their periods they're not quite set up like clockwork yet, where it happens every month. So that's something that I have a question about. It's like, how do you wait 20 weeks to not know? Like, you just weren't having your period and you just thought that was normal? It's like, no, that's not the normal. Why do they call it pro-life versus pro-choice instead of pro-death? See, part of the problem is that, well, what do you consider to be life and what not? Because if it's just a group of cells, then they would not see it as pro-death. So, but if the majority of people are saying no, those cells are alive, just like with a tree with all the cells in its leaves. So that needs to be cleared up. Why do people who don't believe in abortions have to pay for it with their taxes? That was something else that she brought up too. It's like, she said, I don't believe in abortions at all. Why are you making me pay for something? And you can draw that right back into religion. Christians, for example, really do not believe, or we can use Jews, because I heard Ben Shapiro talk about this. He's like, Jews do believe in abortion in certain circumstances, and one of them is that whenever the mother's life is in high risk of losing her life during the pregnancy, yes, have an abortion, save the mother. But for the most part, it's like, no, and it would be committing a sin to helping a woman have an abortion. Almost 70% of sexual assaults go unreported to law enforcement officials. It's like, well, what do you mean by that? Because today, with the definition of some people out there, they would say that putting your hand on a woman's shoulder is rape because you didn't have consent or something like that. It's like, you can get the hell out of town with your nonsense lunacy. And so then from that article, most don't, but only 1.2% of abortions procedures occur after 20 weeks gestation. About 4,500 in 2016. It's usually not something women delay by choice. The later the abortion, the more complicated the procedure and the more expensive it is. In fact, 58% of women who had an abortion say they would have liked to have had it performed earlier in their pregnancy. It's like, yeah. So why are some of the abortion procedures occurring after 20 weeks? Often the reason is medical. About 2% of pregnancies suffer from a major birth defect, and often no medical treatment can save the fetus. It's like, yes. If there's complications, I'm much more, yes, absolutely, for the mother or the fetus. And for many pregnant women, it is only in weeks 16 to 22 that they even have a hint that something may be fatally wrong with their pregnancy. And so they talk about that. In order to do that, it's really kind of invasive. It's not something that you really want to do, and that the only time that people learn about this is whenever you've completed the first trimester. And then they do a little bit of testing, and then all this kind of comes to light. It's like, oh, okay. So, yeah, that if that's the way that they do it, then that makes sense to me. It's like, yes. So that first trimester, does the federal and state bans have exceptions for these and other extenuating situations? Right? I don't need your little... Shut up. Just ask the stupid question. No, the House bill makes no exception for fatal birth defects or the health of the pregnant woman. That is lunacy. Why not? And I've heard of this. I've heard of women where there were problems with their pregnancy. The doctor knew it. The doctor knew that something was supposed to go on, but legally couldn't do anything, and the woman died. It also limits its rape and incest exception to situation where the victim has already come forward, and even under those very limited expectations, it dictates that. I had to go answer the door. It was a last minute. I've got some junk that I was selling on Marketplace. Came up unexpectedly, but glad to get rid of it. Alright, so where were we? And so they were talking about incest and rape, and that it doesn't happen very often. They should, or no, about birth defects. It also limits its rape and incest. It's like, I don't know why. They're both at fault, the Republicans and Democrats, for both. Well, why do they not answer these things? Part of it is because I don't. There needs to be one place where we've got good, accurate information. Because whenever I did a search for all of this stuff, all these articles popped up, and it's a lot of articles that they just don't make any sense. This one from Odyssey was just horrid. They had a couple of things that were kind of all right, but it was so many straw man arguments. I know exactly what needs to be done so that we can get rid of these stupid straw man arguments. So, possible solutions. I did answer this a little bit. Breaking this down into more specific situations would help clear the situation. And also having those specific situations with specific outcomes. Instead of just this general thing of just pro-life and pro-choice. It's like that doesn't answer a damn thing. You can go around and you can ask people. If there's like an 80% chance that the woman is going to die during pregnancy, do you think that she should be allowed to have an abortion? People are overwhelmingly going to say yes, let her have an abortion. Who's going to say no to that? But if you change the way that the question is asked, and you ask, well, do you think a woman should go out and have an abortion, and that we should pay for it through taxpayer money? If she just went out to a bar, randomly met some guy, they both got drunk, hooked up, and now she got pregnant, do you think that we should do that then? And you're going to find that everybody's overwhelmingly going to answer the other way. It's like, no. You can change the question up again. Okay, well, now these two people, same thing. They went out, they met at a bar, they got drunk, they got together, and now they're pregnant. Should they be allowed to get an abortion without taxpayer-funded money? And then that one's going to be more of a mixed bag of nuts right there. I think that's going to be more on what you believe with your religion. It's going to be more of a philosophical debate. And that you're going to see yes and no kind of. You can divide that up into two parts. About should she be allowed to have an abortion? There will be a debate over that. If you ask, should the taxpayers have to pay for it, you're going to find that it's going to be no. The argument is going to be whether or not if she should be allowed to have an abortion or not. People will say no, taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for it, they made a mistake. I don't get bailed out of my mistakes through the government, so why should these two people? But okay, so people I think would really overwhelmingly agree, no, I ain't paying for that. But if they want to pay for it, and then some links. The most important questions about abortion, and I'm going to have all this stuff on here. And at some point in time, whenever I have the website on, we will dive into this much deeper. Yeah, and those amps too. So to end off, this is the information that has been gathered so far. What else needs to be added? So leave your comments down below if you think that there's something else that was missed, or that you think that maybe I just skimmed over a little bit and should be more kind of focused in on. What are your thoughts on the issue at hand? Do you agree or disagree with side A or B or so on? Maybe a little bit of both, because I kind of go both on some of these things. I don't think I was strictly down just one side. I did take preference, I think, with pro-life. I think I lean a little bit more that way. That doesn't mean you have to. And so right now, this is the best that I can currently do. As I build the website and put these features in, you will see how these checks and balances and the use of research and data and studies will be the driving force that will build trust and confidence. So yeah, and again, as I stated at the beginning, this is not about changing minds. This is about showing that there are lies, intentional or not. It's like, yes, why do politicians never talk about stuff? Have you ever heard it quite in this detail? And it's like, why not? If we're going to base our policies and what we're going to do with our taxpayer money, shouldn't we be as in depth with this discussion as we could possibly be? So I'm leaving it up to you. The website will really be all based on people and bringing up all these things. So to finally end off, I would say that, do you believe that the fetus is a living organism or not? And if it is, then that is the first stages of human development. So when do you ever get to kill a human being? I think whenever you ask and answer that question, I think that's going to really determine a lot. If you say that, yes, the fetus is the first stages of human development, and that's a human being, then nothing else matters. You don't get to murder, because that's exactly what you're talking about. Now, if you don't think that, and you think that it's just a group of cells, and I don't care what people think. I care about, well, what is the science? I don't see why there should not be just a complete, obvious, technical, scientific answer for that. What are we going to say is scientifically living? And I guess purely technically, it's like, yeah, those cells are alive. And that those are the first stages of human development. So what do you think? Expect more of this as things to come. I really want to get into it. And every time that whenever I have all of these things, I'm going to be doing this, I guess, for 6 months. There's going to be roughly 120 topics that, and this is really good timing because this is the end of the month. And so, what is it? Tomorrow's going to be the first. So for 6 months, I'm going to do this. There's going to be roughly 120 topics. And then after that's done, I'll probably kind of stop on the topics. Maybe I'll add one every now and then. But for the most part, it'll be adding more and more and more and more and more and more and more to this, because there's quite a bit. And I think a lot of it is I am about to fill in a bunch of straw man responses right here after reading that stuff from Odyssey right. This was just dumb. This was just some little child, Mary, just crying about a bunch of trash. There were a couple of good things in there, but for the most part, it's like you're not talking about anything. I do not care about your feelings because I cannot. There's over. I just saw the other day 7.8 billion people on the planet. There's no way I can care about all those people's feelings. Why are you so privileged in your thinking and your beliefs that you think that we can just all stop and care for you? Get out of here. Get out of here with that stuff. Nobody does that for me. Nobody should be doing it for you. Nobody should be doing it for anybody. If that's what you want, then go out there and get yourself some friends and family and knock yourself out with all that stuff. That's great. More power to you. So if you two are more interested in the facts instead of people's feelings, and you don't want the straw man arguments, and you're tired of the politicians not actually addressing the issues, and you've understood all this stuff, then hit the thumbs up, give it a like, subscribe, become a member, because we're going to deal with it, baby. I've got Patreon, Subscribe Star, that'll help me out a lot. Thanks for watching, and we will see you again next time. Bye.